Good morning, Ian.
Good morning.
I'm Daniel. This is Red Queen Music Publishing, and Ian George is one of our artists, and so we're happy to represent him. When did you start playing music?
God, I started playing music when I was a senior in high school. I have these really vivid memories of being a young teenager and snowboarding and listening to the band Weezer and thinking, God, I'd love to do that one day. And finally, for my senior year Christmas, I asked my mom for a guitar, and I got like a cheap Mexican-made Stratocaster. And I just wanted to play Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, the Beatles, Grateful Dead, and that's pretty much all I did. So I only played the electric guitar for like 6 months, and then I stopped playing the guitar and started playing mandolin and played bluegrass and folk music for years. And then it wasn't until a couple of years ago I got back into the guitar. And then about a year and a half ago, where I got my second electric guitar, which just felt really naughty at the time as a folk musician, which felt so good, so right.
So Bob Dylan, right?
So Bob Dylan, yeah.
So you recorded this record in France, is that right?
Yeah, in Paris, France, at a studio called Labo M Studios, which is the personal studio of a beloved French musician, a guy named Matthew Chedid, who is also known as just the letter M. He opened up that studio in the summer a couple of years ago, and it was definitely a highlight of my life. Like, so fun. What a privilege and honor to be working in this 15th century mansion in Paris across from the Luxembourg Park. And we had time to experiment and try stuff. And I lived upstairs in the peasant quarters for that month. And it was actually King Louis the 16th's nephew's spot that they built for him. And it's just got a lot of history, and now it's like an artist collective. So every floor has different international artists living there. At the time, Natalie Portman had the floor above me. It was just a wild little world to enter, just like a country boy going to Paris, France to record a folk rock album. It was a great experience for sure.
Talk about that. You were in Europe touring, and then you kind of got taken in to do this recording project. And then what? There was just magically musicians, because there's always musicians where there's a studio?
I wanted to backpack without any plan through Europe and play music and busk. And as I went to Paris, a friend of mine that I had just met in Oregon, who had just moved to Oregon from Paris, she said, if you're going to Paris, you got to meet with a couple of these people. I think you'd really get on with them. And at the top of the list was this guy named Vincent. I emailed him and he said, yeah, it was raining. Do you want to come to my buddy's studio downtown? And we can just jam today. And I was, of course, was so down. As we walked up, he was kind of giving me this, like, yeah, just so you know, it's like this guy, Matthew Chedid. He's a French musician at blah, blah, blah. Like, he was essentially saying he's kind of like a Tom Petty for the French people. Like, really, like, loved for decades. And we ended up going into the studio that night and just jammed until the sun rose. And Matthew was there, so the three of us just played music. And we're kind of workshopping songs we were working on. And we had so much fun that I traveled through again a couple months later, and we had another late night. I had been writing a lot of music at the time, which actually were all the songs on this album. They were really feeling that these songs should be recorded soon, and they really liked them, and they offered the studio. I was totally not ready, and I had not anticipated on making an album. Anyways, I almost said no to the album, taking them up on the option many times, because I just didn't feel like I was ready. I needed an excuse to just back out, but I ended up just committing to it. I'm so glad that I did. Those songs are written and recorded for the most part in France and Italy and Spain. So it was really, really grateful that I was able to capture those songs and record them on the land that they were kind of created.
Your first song on the record is Gitchi Gumi, and I looked that up and I found out that that's about Lake Superior. What's the connection for you with the lake?
So I'm born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Pretty much the only part of Lake Superior that enters the state of Minnesota is the North Shore. And the South Shore is beachy and kind of gentle, and the North Shore is rugged cliffs, all stone, like pebble beaches and huge waves. People surf up there, actually. It's some really amazing photos of a lot of dudes with frozen beards surfing with big hunks of ice on this big lake. So I guess, as a kid, we'd go up there and we'd rent a little cabin or go camping, and seeing Lake Superior, which the native term for Lake Superior is Gitchi Gumi, was my first exposure to a body of water that I couldn't see across. And so it's like seeing the ocean for the first time for most people, where that feeling of just expansion, where like infinite, like just the horizon and the sky and the water, they're uniting, however many miles away, it doesn't matter, it feels like forever, is like it's so vivid for me. I didn't really see the ocean until I was quite a bit older, as someone like being grown in Minnesota, where we're about as far away from an ocean as you can get in North American continent. There's something about that place that, like, I remember saying, like, God, I think I might die up here.
Orange painted the leaves October.
Yeah, like such a deep place in my upbringing and my life. Yeah, anyways, the album is called Kingdom of My Youth, and it more so means to me is like a state of mind. But if there were to be a physical kingdom of my youth, it would be Lake Superior. So it very much ties in.
Maybe talk about how you use harmony that's maybe different from traditional folk. Or
harmony, the band that I was in before this solo project was the main part of it was 4-part harmonies. I love harmonies. I love singing harmonies. I love arranging harmonies. I like singing lead to someone else, singing a harmony above or below me. It just feels so good. I mean, I love like instrumental jamming, but when it comes to singing with people that love singing harmonies and feeling it in your body, it's like I have the most joy singing harmony than I do anything else.
I keep candles and wine in the cellar beneath my kitchen floor. And I have 12 croquet mallets, but only one of them is worn. And I share it all with you just to have a buddy.
The harmony has so much power, and naturally when I'm writing music and finding a melody, I'm also hearing the harmony that will really bring out certain colors in the melody to alter the state of the melody and the color, at least momentarily, that I find inspiring and overwhelming at times.
your music is also pretty modal. I counted 5 of your 8 songs ending in the Lydian mode.
Nice. Really?
I mean,
God,
that's pretty uncommon to maybe to end one song, but to end 5 of your 8 in Lydian mode is a little different. Was that conscious?
No, definitely not.
What's funny is that the Greeks actually thought that boys shouldn't listen to too much Lydian mode because it would feminize them. And the funny thing is that the first song that's not in the Lydian mode on your record is Better with a Buddy.
Yeah, that's the 4th track, I think.
Better with a Buddy just ends in a B major chord. But I thought maybe you knew that history, and if you did, that would be kind of funny because of your video for The Wild and the Untamed that has this kind of androgynous feel to it.
Right. Yeah, it does have an androgynous feel to it. And that's kind of the vibe, the intention of the song. It's kind of inspired by a true story, actually, between my partner and I, where she went out to do something and she came home hours later, and I had nothing on but our daughter's tutu, hot pink tutu, and my daughter and I were just frolicking through the house, listening to Vivaldi or something, blasting on the record player. And I had nothing in my hand but a cast iron. I was making dinner at like midnight, and I was, not only am I like total bad dadding it because it was midnight, and not only is she not asleep, but we're awake, jamming out in hot pink tutus, haven't even eaten dinner yet. And she steps to the door, and she was like, I think her phrase was like almost exactly like, "What the fuck? I thought you were supposed to be my burly man." And I was just like, whoa. Am I supposed to be, what am I? I'm not supposed to be anything. And so that song was written like the next day about that interaction. Anyways.
I found you hid neath the hay there we remain.
So yeah, the androgyny is very, very much a part of it because it's inspired by me twirling like a ballerina in a tutu, which is very much a part of who I am. I'm finding out.
All I can offer is who I am. Enchant the world perceived, untamed and wildly, as children do it often, please.
Talk about the artists that you've most learned from.
Like I said before, I would say traditional music, especially in particularly that of Ireland, Scotland, England, is what I'm most fascinated with, the melodies and the stories.
When did you realize that you'd be a lifelong musician?
I just wanted to play music and be playing music with other people. And I find so much joy in tossing around musical vibrations and seeing what we can do with them. I like to call it snuggling vibrationally.
What do you think your next record's going to be like?
God, I'm in the middle of planning it, actually. I'm really excited about that. And it'll probably be really different. It'll probably be more, I'm kind of wanting to make something a little more raw and more just band vibe, like 4-piece band, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, upright bass, and drums. So I guess I'm kind of, in my mind, it's 2 albums. One of them is more like we're chilling, we're having maybe a frothy pint of ale in the evening with our sweetie, and maybe eating a coconut flan. It's coconut flan music. That's kind of the direction I'm going, I think, for that album. And then the other album would be, maybe more like crunchy potato chips and cheap Mexican beer with homies in like a truck going up the Central California coast looking for a place to camp for the night. That's the other vibe.
All right. Well, thanks, Ian. It's been great talking with you.
It's been a pleasure, man. You've asked really good questions, and it really made me think. And I really appreciate that because it's not always like that. And you clearly dug into the music, and it was really nice. I'm going to look into those Lydian scales more for you.
Floating landscapes set before your roving eyes and picture boards. Golden ages, castle people, a pauper life, and the priest united. kitchen table. Social classes clash no more. Social classes clash no more. After all you know, there will never be anything as lovely as the way you paint a child's face. Day